Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a little while. I apologize. Been a little under the weather and just stuff around the shop. Just yeah, taking a while to get some more filming done on the 4BT swap. But in this video, we are going to show you how we made the downpipe, plumbed in the turbocharger feed and drain line, the heater hoses. So there's one, there's the other one that comes up around the top. So follow along and I'll show you how we got her done. Alright guys, so we're going to start plumbing this turbocharger in. If you've been following the series along, welcome back. If you haven't, good to see you. So yeah, we're going to show you what we're going to do here to get the turbo plumbed in and the oil feed, oil drain, and yeah, what some stuff we had to do to make the turbo work. So the first thing we had, if you remember in previous videos, is this flange did not really line up with the oval hole. This was rectangular and this is an oval. But now that's been welded up a bit and we have a smoother transition at the gasket. If there's a little more pressure like up from the gasket, that's not such a big deal, but if it's right at the gasket, you're probably gonna blow it out. So for the feed, we have this AN4 line. For the drain, we have this number 10 line. For feed, we got a nice 1/8 pipe to number 4 AN fitting there. The top of the turbo was a little more trickier to find some fittings for. So we ended up going with a banjo bolt. Here's that. There's a part number for it. And then the other piece just goes to number 4 AN. So then we have some straights. I bought more than we're probably going to need. I just wanted to make sure I had enough. So we have some straights. And then we have some 45-degree number 10 and some straight number 10s. So we should have everything we need here to get all the lines done for the turbo. One problem that we ran into is the feed line. This is the fitting from factory. It's a O-ring Boss fitting. So there's an O-ring that goes down in here and seals against the surface. I wanted to keep this fitting and use this feed, but we have some super hard time trying to find a fitting to adapt to number 4 AN. So what we're gonna have to do is take out a plug that is in front of this fitting and just basically weld this shut and cap it. So then we're not gonna be using this one, we're gonna be using the plug in front of it. And I'll show you what I mean right now. So down in the top of the oil filter housing, there is 2 fittings. The far fitting is the factory feed, and that little hex head is another feed you can also use. Now, it may look like there's a decent size difference between the two, but I have ran a S480 on a set of twins off of that smaller feed, and it was perfectly fine. So this little turbocharger that we're putting on here, there's not going to be any oil problems using that feed. The line's going to have to come from down here and kind of loop up and around and go to the top of the turbo. But we're going to have to get our center section mounted on here before we know where we need to run everything. So let's get the adapter put on and just the center section kind of bolted in place so we know where our lines are going to be ran. But before we run our lines, I want to get this fitting and everything put in, and then get the other one out, put my 90 in, and then we'll get the center section bolted up and see where our lines have to go. Alright, so we got the old Fournier fired up, and we got her kind of jigged up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to weld a brake line nut inside of that nut and then cap it that way, just so it's not such a big hole to try to fill at once. So let's get her going. Alright guys, so I took the alternator off so you can see in here better and I can get in here better to work. We installed the spacer between the turbocharger and hooked up the charger just so we know where the center section and everything's going to be. So we have our drain line here. Now to get this in, this angled bracket right here, I had to notch that out for the line to fit down in. I'm gonna have to notch a tiny bit more out, but got that in. Down to the bottom, it is a number 10 line with 245s on it. And then as for the feed, you can see right there, we had to weld up a plug for this line, and then we took out the cap that was here and just put in this 1/8 pipe to number 4 AN. So that's going to loop up and around and into the center section. And we've already got our starter in and wired up. To wire it up, we just put the battery positive back onto this terminal, and then found what wire was the signal wire out of the harness and ran it down to the starter. So that's all good. So let's get going on this feed line. Alright guys, we got our AN fitting up here. Hose comes down into the filter housing. So since this one's going to be a little closer to the exhaust, I ran some heat tube or heat shield on it. But we just have this up here, number 4 AN, going into a banjo fitting and a banjo bolt. So we got our bottom line ran, top line ran. This adapter is already tightened up with a gasket in here, but I didn't put a gasket in here yet, so I can take everything apart and redo it. So I'm gonna do that now. And then our turbo lines are good to go. And then we gotta put the housing on and also do the heater core. So again, we got number 10 AN down here, number 4 AN up top. All right, so we're getting ready to do our final assembly here with the gaskets and everything. And for the back 2 bolts, right here, you can see you can't get a bolt in here. There's no room really between these tabs to get a bolt in. So we tracked down some studs for the back 2. We can get the bolts in the front 2. And yeah, we should be good to go with that. All right, so we got our turbo mounted up. For the wastegate, which is here, we had to change this fitting because the original one went up like this. So we'd have to have a line that comes around all the way down like that. So I unthreaded that and drilled and tapped that to 1/8 pipe. So now we can bring a line around like this, or if we want to, we can go down around the bottom like that. We have our feed drain done or our feed line done in number 4 AN. Our drain line is done in number 10 AN. And we also have our coolant lines done. So this is 5/8, I believe. And we did some heat wrap on that as well. And then for the bottom one to come around the filter, we had to put a 90, come out into a straight, put another 90 into a barbed fitting, and then come around to this 90 right here. So this hose insulator, I picked it up at Bicknell's. Looks like this. It's basically got, I don't know if that's asbestos or fiberglass in there, but it expands around the hose and you just slide it on. I guess you can get this stuff cheaper at like a hydraulic place. So this stuff is like 16 bucks a foot at Bicknell's, but I guess you can get it for like 5 bucks a foot. So now we're moving on to making the downpipe, which is right here. We have our flange coming out of the turbo into a flange that we made, or I got made. And now we're doing the downpipe around the firewall. Those wires there are gonna have to be moved, but yeah, we got some pie cuts going on. I brought my horizontal bandsaw out from retirement. I bought it probably like, oh shoot, probably like 10 years ago. She's old, but it works. And that's it right there. So for our pie cuts, I have it set up at 10 degrees. That'll give a little bit of a tighter radius in your bends. Also to tighten up the radius,
You can see this narrow part here. If you make that thicker, then your bend will be wider. And if you make it narrow, then your bend will be tighter. So I've got a few pie cuts here for the bottom bend. But right now we got the top bend pretty much where we want it. I'm gonna have to cut another piece on a 45 that'll go straight, and then it'll go down hopefully straight through there. So I'm gonna cut a few more pie cuts, and just so I have enough to do the bend at the bottom, and then we'll do the straight piece. So back to the bandsaw. And there we go. So we got our downpipe coming down to the bottom. It's a little long, we have to trim that up. But before we connect all that, we had to install a new flex pipe. So we got that all welded in. To install that, since the one seam is right where this cross member is, we cut it off right here, took it to the bench over there, welded it up, and then welded this back in. So now we have the flex pipe in, and this piece here has to be connected to the downpipe. So to do that, we're going to cut it somewhere in here on an angle like the bottom, only an opposite angle. So then it's coming around, and then make our pie cut come around, and then go straight on into here. And then once we have that all put together and tacked up, we're gonna have to drop this cross member out again, drop the whole thing down, and take it to the bench and weld everything up, and then wrap the part closest to the firewall, and then the downpipe is done. Now what I did here was I just tacked it with the MIG, and then once I get it all together, I'm going to drop it down and grind these off. Once I take a little bit right here, it's all got to be cleaned up. But yeah, just to tack them in place, just use the MIG, put a little spot on them, so then I can get this pipe right here lined up, and I'm going to drop the whole thing down and then take it over to the bench. Alright guys, so we got it on the welding table here. We got these tacked up. I got this one marked here and another mark down here to line them up so we know where this one has to go. So I'm just going to tack this up, and then the other end, you're gonna have to make like an adapter to go from this to like 3.5. So let's fire up the old Fournier and get these tacked up so they're not going to move. So now that we have this all tacked up, now we have to go around each weld and finish welding around them. So this flange, all these, I gotta take a wire wheel and clean off the coating on these, and then the weld will go better. But I'm gonna take it here and then grind these MIG welds off, and then take the whole thing. So once this is all one piece and solid, then I'll make a flange, or not a flange, make like an adapter to go from the 2.5 to the 3-inch or whatever's on the vehicle. And then this downpipe will be done, and the turbo, exhaust, oil feed, and coolant, be all good. All right, so we got this all welded up. Now we got to get it in the vehicle and then see where this end sits in here, and then weld that up. Because there's a flange right here, so we don't really need to put like a connector or anything here. It'll all go there, and then all the flex will be taken up by the flex pipe. So we gotta get it up in there, see where it fits up, mark it, probably tack it, and then probably just going to like shrink this down, like kind of heat it up a little bit and bend it down so it's making contact with the pipe and weld it on. All right, so we got that end flange welded on. We've also got the wrap on, the header wrap. Now this stuff is from DEI, and it is a titanium wrap, so you don't have to get it wet. You don't have to get it wet. You don't have to do anything special to it. You just wrap it around, keep it tight, overlap it by 1/4 inch, and comes with the stainless clamps. Clamping it. I wish it had 2 more. It came with 4, but they're for a 2-inch pipe. This being 2.5 inch wasn't quite long enough. So we had to put 2 together, so we only have 1 on each end. But stuff looks sweet. I've heard about it before on other YouTube channels, but I've never actually had a chance to use it. Looks pretty nice, and hopefully she does the job. So now let's get the downpipe in the vehicle and get it all attached up, and then exhaust side of the turbo is done. All right guys, so we got the downpipe installed. I'll bolt it up back here, up through here, running along the firewall. Fits nice in there. Got it wrapped up in the titanium wrap from DEI. Also got our bung installed and welded in for our trans temp sensor for our gauges. Now take you up top, and I'll show you what it looks like from up there. All right guys, so there she is. It's all clamped up, wrapped up. Running down the firewall there. We gotta fasten this coolant line over a little bit so it's a little further away from it, but yeah, fits all in there good. So there we go. We got our turbo installed, and that's gonna wrap up this video. So don't forget to follow us on Instagram, like us on YouTube, or like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and if you want to comment down below, feel free. And thank you for watching, and we will see you on the next one.